Okay, so in the first two videos, we started with what is Bitcoin. We said Bitcoin is valuable because it's useful and it's scarce. We also said that it's not enough to just be scarce, right? Like the Dodge Neon is more scarce than Bitcoin, and Dodge Neon is not worth more than Bitcoin. So scarcity is necessary, but not sufficient. Now we really need to get to is, what is money? Is Bitcoin money? Why is all that? And there's all kinds of terribly boring explanations about this. But the bottom line is what money is. You've known what money is / was since you were a kid. Since you went to payphones and tried to see if there were quarters in the change thing. If you're over 30, I don't know if anybody has that experience these days anymore. But even children know what money is. It's not something you need some academic to tell you, like, oh, well, it's fungible, and it has scarcity, and it's transportable, and it's easily all these factors that always get mentioned, right? That's after the fact. That's somebody describing an observed phenomenon, being like, oh, well, this is money because I knew it was money, and then I came up with 5 adjectives about it. Bottom line is money is an emergent phenomenon, right? It's a social phenomenon. It's complicated, it's iterative, it's always evolving. And Bitcoin is an attempt to kind of jump on that train. It's practically studying the experience of money in human history and saying, okay, great, well, can we approximate that with something that itself is also iterative and subject to change and human interpretation and optimization, all of that, and will that be money? So in that sense, Bitcoin is still this running experiment. But to expand a little bit on the what is money thing, to not be too unsatisfying, I really like the example of the ancient Athenians, who became a wealthy culture pretty much by just finding a pile of silver in their backyard at some silver mines called Laurium. But it's not like the Athenians found this silver and they were like, hey, Professor Socrates, like, is this money? We found this rock. I think it's divisible. And he's like, well, maybe is it scarce? They're like, yeah, well, there's not that much of it. And he's like, well, check, make sure everything's on the list. Like, no, they didn't go through some academic exercise. They didn't even look at it. They weren't like, oh, we found this rock in the ground. What can we do with it? Maybe we're rich. They immediately knew, right? We've found money. This is a big deal. Should we buy a fleet of ships and be a massive naval power and have all sorts of cultural outpourings and other interesting things that are associated with their history? Or, the other idea they had was, oh, let's just give it to everybody and everybody will be rich. But even the Athenians had a certain level of economic acumen to know that maybe that wouldn't necessarily work the same way. But the point is, they didn't have to go through this academic checklist to be like, hey, we found silver, what does this mean? They knew immediately, right? Oh, we found a bunch of money, we found a bunch of cash. It's an emergent phenomenon. It's not something that some professor can tell you about. You can talk about it and have all sorts of interesting adjectives and see certain patterns. And Bitcoin is an attempt to take some of that knowledge from those patterns and say, like, hey, if we follow these things, maybe we can create money with the system. But money is an emergent phenomenon. So 2 key points here. Money is an emergent phenomenon. It's not top-down defined. It's not defined by academics. And Bitcoin is designed as an attempt to participate in that phenomenon. When Bitcoin started, it was an experiment. I'm sure Satoshi wasn't like, oh, I know exactly what money is, I'm going to make money, end of story. Money is a complicated idea. Bitcoin was thrown out there as an experiment. Bitcoin wasn't money in 2009 the way it's money today, because there's all sorts of other effects that we'll talk about in later videos. So money is an emergent phenomenon. Bitcoin is a designed attempt to participate in that phenomenon, and that's where we're at.
All right, welcome to CoinSpice Live. I'm your host, Peter Ryan. CoinSpice Live, your home for spicy crypto things on the internet. We got a great show for you tonight. We just had Joey King at Bites a Man on Twitter describe for us and explain his take on what is Bitcoin, how different features of it combine to produce what he calls the emergent social phenomenon that's going on. Opened up with that. Then we're going to roll into some news. What's going on? Lolli's being a little odd when it comes to trademarking things in open source software. We're going to explore some data. Some people are talking about what's happening with transaction count, transaction volume. We're going to look at some in the weed stuff of what's going on there. And we got our buddy Colin Enstead coming in to talk to us a little bit about that. After that, we're going to be checking in on some of Twitter shenanigans that are going on. If you look in the chat, and please participate in the chat, you can find the Twitter link where we posted a dank meme submission post, where if you comment the dankest meme you got, we're going to show it at the end of the show. So get in there, post your memes, and if you're good, if you're chat enough, you'll make it to the primetime slot. So we got that, and then of course we have our interview with Vin Armani. Vin's been talking about a theory he has where Bitcoin is not money. This is definitely a little counterintuitive for us all, but it's a fantastic interview. Vin has a lot of interesting ideas that we really explore and bring out from just some of the tweets that were going by. Maybe you saw that were a little too quick. So great opportunity, great show tonight. Again, please hang out in the chat. Everybody's looking good in there. Please go and follow us when it comes to YouTube. Subscribe when it comes to Twitter. Follow us on Twitter at CoinSpice. Get in our Telegram news channel so you can follow up with everything that's going on in real time. Check out our t-shirt store. I mean, like, who doesn't want dank memes on some t-shirts? And you can find that all at our store. Finally, you see the little scrolling tipbitcoin.cash link going by, and it's in the description as well if you want to click it. If you do that, if you want to send us some love, if you want to send us not only some love but some Bitcoin, and not just some Bitcoin but some spice, some newly added spice, you can find that at that link below, and your donation, your tip, will pop up right above my head. You'll go over there to the left in that little screen, and you'll be using Bitcoin as it was meant to be used. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. All right. Here we go. So we are talking about Lolli. We are talking about what Lolli did. A little confusing for some. Absolutely. A lot to sort of unpack. But basically, let's just get the story straight. Lolli was doing some legally questionable stuff when it comes to being a company within the Bitcoin space, a Bitcoin being open source software. Certain ethical considerations are definitely at the forefront of a lot of people's minds. If you go down here, this is what they did. The first clue to what was going on was in their frequently asked questions page, they actually put a TM symbol next to stacking sats. It's a phrase, you probably heard it before. A lot of people use it, talking about, hey, we're stacking sats, blah, blah, blah. And people called this out. A Bitcoiner noticed it and said, was looking at it, what's going on here? Should not be trademarked. And this was an issue that was a little hot under the collar. This doesn't mean that much. Who cares if a phrase, a word was being trademarked? But the point is, it just goes to the ethical considerations of certain companies, certain folks, individuals in the space, as they get their heads around, like, what are we all doing here and what do we ethically want to happen? So ultimately, there was a big Twitter backlash. People said, Lolli, what are you doing? You can't just start trademarking things like this that are just common sayings. They came back, released some public statements, talked about how, we weren't trying to do this. We weren't trying to, be malicious in any way. In fact, we were perhaps attempting to try to do this. Maybe we were 2 steps forward, 2 steps back, to protect the phrase from malicious actors. And so there's a lot of back and forth. We were trying to figure out what was going on. So yours truly slid into those DMs of Lolli and got some on the record quotes from them. Ultimately, again, it was a back and forth. It was a no, we did not trademark, but we were thinking about it. Maybe we were kind of about to do it, and then this happened, and we weren't exactly sure. Not exactly as clear cut, but to sum it all up, what actually ended up happening was Lolli was talking about how the action they took was setting up that frequently asked question by placing the symbol there. They were trying to establish in-use commerce of that term, which would ultimately set them up to actually do the filing of the trademark officially so that they would get it. So even though they didn't make that filing, or we can't prove they made that filing, they were taking the steps in that direction. They were moving maybe not from 0 to 1, but 0 to 0.5. And we talked to Nelson M. Rosario. He's a lawyer. He comments in the crypto space quite a bit. He says by utilizing the TM symbol, Lolli is asserting at least asserting common law TM rights in the phrase stacking sats with respect to a good or service they offer. They may or may not have filed a trademark application. So this is important to note. Again, this isn't groundbreaking. This isn't super crazy if they did this or not, but it goes to the whole ethical considerations that we in this open source software, we in this Bitcoin world really want to cater to. So yeah, so that's what's going on with Lolli, a company known for being a little bit more Bitcoin core oriented, let's say, and even in their public statement where they tried to backpedal and talk about how they were only doing this to protect the phrase from malicious actors if they try to use it in nefarious ways, they did in that public statement, without any euphemism or hint or subtlety, directly referenced Bitcoin.com as the malicious party that they were seeking to protect the industry from. Now, you could view that protect verb in a very Orwellian way, in the double meaning of attack versus protect, and kind of read into that. But it does seem like Lolli was not too clear on exactly what they were doing, exactly what their story was when the public outcry happened. Ultimately, this is something that is interesting to think about as we continue on into our tribal warfare of different crypto camps and seeing how they interact with one another. All right, so that is Lolli. So on to the next. We're moving on to the next story, which is Coinmetrics. So folks, Coinmetrics came out and they did a big data deep dive. They talked about, okay, we're going to do some comparing of the Bitcoin forks. BTC, Bitcoin Core, Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin Satoshi's Vision, all that stuff. They broke down the data. They did it in a way that was not bad by any means. They're pretty good when it comes to really presenting the numbers. But there was a few things that were a little bit of not just crunching numbers, but actually starting to editorialize a bit. And so I want to explore this and how this connects to the new trends that we're seeing with SLP tokens within BCH. So let's explore. So here we are. So here's their write-up. You can find it. This was a newsletter they released on July 29th. And they're trying to explore what's going on through a variety of different metrics. They're talking about realized cap. They're talking about medium exchange analysis, transaction fees, all this stuff we know. The thing that I want to get to, the heart of what's happening here, is they start getting into these on-chain metrics, transaction counts, and start talking about the op return. So here we see a chart of total transaction count. We see Bitcoin Core flatlining right here. We see Bitcoin Cash kind of popping up over here, coming back down, coming back up in a very nice growth trend right here. And BSV also doing a little bit of an up and down, and then having their growth trend as well right here. Here's the thing. Coinmetrics comes out and starts talking about, quote, although blockchains are predominantly used to record value transfers, they can also be used as distributed immutable database for non-transaction related data. Short messages, Bitcoin operator messages must be less than 80 bytes, like weather in New York City on July 15th was 80 degrees, can be written onto the blockchain and stored forever. So this is what I want to focus on. Non-transaction related data. That's a key phrase here. This is something that they are putting their op-ed into what is a pretty hard-nosed data article. And they're trying to say, oh, well, you know, certain data is just, it doesn't have anything to do with the medium of exchange. It doesn't have anything to do with actually transmitting value back and forth. And we on our ivory tower here at Coinmetrics are deciding that for the industry. I take umbrage with this type of deciding. I don't think someone can necessarily make this claim. There could be some opinions to be had about what exactly blockchains are getting used for when it comes to the data storage. But in general, we know that if you're paying a fee, then, you know, that space is inherently valuable. And when it comes to specifically, as we get into this op return and then the connection to SLP tokens, it becomes even more apparent that this definition of non-transaction related data is really problematic. And again, they go on to then say as well to use the blockchain as a database. Users need to be able to include arbitrary data as part of the transaction. Bitcoin added the op return script opcode in 2013 to allow users to do this. Op return transactions can be used to record metadata on chain, but cannot be used to effectively exchange value. Any outputs with op return are unspendable. So again, so they have non-transaction related data, and then here they have arbitrary data. These are editorialized phrases and terms. These are not, you know, solid definitions. These are something that is getting weaved into a number crunching article. So, you know, they go on to talk about how we can see BSV transactions, what's happening here when it comes to the op return percentage wise. They're getting filled up. You can see it again here. They're talking about specifically, there was the noted weather data that was getting stored, and I believe they say here as of July 14th, over 94% of all BSV transactions are being sent by Weather SV. So, you know, we're not going to comment exactly on that. Again, like we said, if people are paying fees, you know, data is inherently valuable because of that. You can make claims about what exactly is going on in terms of the use cases, but we'll move past that for now. We'll get to Bitcoin Cash. And they start to talk about the op return percentage here, what's going on. You can see a big sharp uptick here in terms of Bitcoin Cash transactions with op return. So, you know, this is what they're getting at. They're showing that there's this increase, and they're trying to make the connection that there's something valueless. There's something sort of not exactly what you should be using blockchains for. And then they go on to show what's going on with BTC. They show a similar thing going on here. They show a high of about 50%. They remark that Omni and Veriblock are the ones that are dominating this. And so again, they state here, relative to BTC, BSV, and BCH are increasingly being used as a way to store data as opposed to as a medium of exchange. Again, this is an editorialized comment. This is not reporting the data, just like calling balls and strikes. This is someone getting in there with an opinion. So throughout this whole article, and it goes on for quite a few more ways, they go and they explore all that. They report the data. They give their op-ed, but they don't actually talk about one of the most interesting stories of the past year when it comes to Bitcoin Cash. They do not talk about SLP tokens and the growth that we're seeing with that. So let's jump into what exactly I'm talking about. This is the growth that I'm talking about here. SLP tokens from the beginning to the end, right now, over 2,700 tokens were created. You know, we have all these transactions getting done. In the last 24 hours, there were 619. If you look at this chart here, you can see the total transactions by month. And you can see this start to go up. Here we are in March, April, May, June, July. And we're talking about 20,000 new transactions that are occurring with SLP. So these are growing pretty well. I mean, in the past month, there was a doubling, as you can see. And if you go back to Coinmetrics article and you look at what they're talking about Bitcoin Cash, you can see that there's this big uptick when it comes to, you know, it's kind of coming over here, it's coming up and it's coming back up. And here we are in July, and then you come back over here. And then you can see again, sort of like, you know, we're growing, and we're especially growing here in July, doubling from what the previous month was. And then if we look at, again, sort of just like here's the year-to-date transactions. This is a log chart, and we see BTC, and it's relatively just flatlining here. And we see Bitcoin Cash in terms of their transactions. And we do see a trend. We do see a trend in it growing and it getting up there. And right around here, we see about 10,000 transactions, 7, 9, 18,000 up here on the high. And then as we get over here, the average starts to be 40, 50, 60, 58, 52,000. And so what we're seeing here is there's definitely growth when it comes to just pure raw transaction count. And then coming back here to look at, again, like, oh, well, here's more transactions that are occurring. And for people that don't know exactly what SLP tokens are, you know, this is they're utilizing the op return field within Bitcoin Cash transactions to record metadata in order for them to actually have this sort of grafted on ability to have these tokens not dissimilar from what you would see on a ERC20 on Ethereum. And so that op return data is valuable in actually making sure these transactions are enabled. And to explore this a little bit, we have Jamie Redman over at Bitcoin.com, and he talks about, you know, what this universe is, what the growth is doing. Really great article. He goes into like, there's the Spice, as we like that quite a bit. If you want to donate Spice, go to the description and, you know, find us on tipbitcoin.cash, throw a little message in there, throw a little Spice our way, and you'll pop up in the top of the screen. You can see how it works, but Spice isn't the only coin out there. You have Liberland, the libertarian dream, somewhere in southern former Yugoslavia, in a disputed border. They're using SLP tokens to actually have their libertarian microstate currency. Also, Dublin, Ohio, which is a just normal sort of suburban town in the Midwest of the United States, is actually using SLP tokens as sort of their city kind of credit points that businesses can use and transact amongst themselves, and creating sort of a micro economy there. There's other popular ones. Honk token is a very, very popular one. I'm sure people have seen that pop around. So again, this is a great article to kind of explore what's going on exactly with the SLP tokens. And again, to profile one, we have a SLP token getting an exchange listing on CoinEx. This was just announced. The Spice token, that beautiful Spice token, which you can tip us if you go to the description, pop that link open and throw us a little love. That Spice token is getting listed on CoinEx through their accelerator on their platform through August 6, 2019. it's used to tip people on Telegram, Twitter, on just like vaporwave live streams. Like, I don't know if you're watching those, who knows? But yeah, this is the growth that we're seeing with SLP tokens, and this is why it's so important to get back to this article where people want to be a little bit cute with their definitions and how they want to weave in data and op-ed. So this is important to clarify. When a company like this says being used in a way to store data as opposed to a medium exchange, they're either obfuscating on purpose or they're just ignorant and being wrong. And so it's important to clarify here that their claim that op return data is arbitrary and not a monetary use is problematic, because we're seeing, again, going back here, we're seeing all these transactions. We're seeing what these tokens are doing, which ones are popular. We have look at Spice. The last 24 hours, Spice is going nuts over here. So these are transactions. These are monetary. People are moving these coins around and they're exchanging value. And this is actual engagement, not just hodling like some morbidly obese basement dweller. This is getting out and being a Chad and using this out in the wild. So now that that's been said, and again, this might be a little heady. Some people might not have got clued into what SLP tokens are. Maybe you're a new viewer of the show. You're not exactly in the know. I want to bring in our boy Colin Enstead to describe, give you an intro 101. What are SLP tokens? So let's hear what Colin has to say.
Tokens! They're now here on Bitcoin Cash in the form of Simple Ledger Protocol, or for short, Simple Tokens. Let's look at how they work. The tokens are stored in the op return of a transaction. An op return is an additional text field that is pegged onto a transaction. The token ID is the hash of the minting transaction. This is the unique identifier to distinguish the token from any other token. SimpleLedger.info is a great explorer that decodes the op return and shows all the tokens info. On this website, you can also go to a wallet and see all of its current tokens it holds. It is extremely easy to make your own simple token in Electron Cash SLP version. You simply click on Create a New Token. You can give it a name, a ticker, a URL for the white paper, and a hash of the white paper to ensure its authenticity. You can also give it up to 9 decimal places, and then how many tokens you want to mint. You can either keep the supply limited or create a minting baton, which is used to create more tokens in the future. This baton can be destroyed at any time. Currently, the easiest wallet to use Simple Tokens is the Badger wallet. Simply click on the menu and your tokens will appear. Simple Ledger addresses are slightly different than regular Bitcoin Cash addresses. It is important to make sure you send it to a Simple Ledger address, because if you receive some tokens on a wallet that doesn't recognize the tokens, it is very easy for the wallet to spend the UTXO the tokens are in without sending the tokens, essentially burning them forever. Crescent Cash was the first mobile wallet to support Simple Tokens, with additional wallets like Bitcoin.com to integrate soon. A cool example of a non-fungible Simple token is the SLP torch, where only one was created. This single torch has been passed over 50 people. You can follow its path through this awesome website or just through a block explorer. Tokens are a great way to expand the possibilities of peer-to-peer cash. Every token transaction does pay a little mining fee, as small as a normal BCH transaction, a fraction of a penny. But this system is much cheaper than Ethereum's, whose gas/transaction fee is often in the tens of cents. This token protocol is very new, and exchanges for them are very close to being released. Simple tokens are awesome because, well, they're just simple. The brilliance is in their efficiency. The Tocambrian explosion for Bitcoin Cash is right around the corner.
All right, thank you, Colin. So can everybody please tip a little spice for Colin for that great, fantastic 101 of what are SLP tokens, what's going on with them, how you can learn more, what wallets you can use. Definitely check them out. So yeah, that's our story on what's going on with Lolli. Kind of cringe, bro. Kind of cringe what you're doing with that trademark. That's our story on what Coinmetrics said about the data. They're pretty good when it comes to the numbers, not so good when it comes to editorializing. We explored some of that SLP data when it comes to the charts. lots of growth going on, lots of potential, lots of just cool projects. Liberland, Dublin, Ohio, Spice. And again, tip Bitcoin.cash, throw some Spice, throw some Bitcoin Cash if you want to do that too. And again, if you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel, subscribe to the YouTube channel. I don't know what you're doing watching this and not being subscribed. And not only that, follow us on Telegram, follow us on Twitter. Why would you not want more CoinSpice in your life? So moving on. So we're going to jump over to Twitter and just look at a little bit what's going on there. We're going to see what's happening, what's going on in the wild world. Oh, Skylark. Look at that. Look at that. Beautiful. Beautiful. We got some Bitcoin Cash flowing. Some flowing Bitcoin Cash. All right. So let's take a little turn over to Twitter. Let's see what's going on here. Let's see the activity. How we doing, chat? Chat, what are we up to? We got Poxed that have he's doing all caps. All right, we got a nice little Spice donation right there. So let's see. What do we got? Oh, we got Mr. Shiftpo. Zcash Johnsons are quaking in their boots. Interesting. Keep going. What do we got? We got some interesting things. For all the use that are missing out on the Democrat debate tonight to watch this. Thank you so much. I mean, you're gonna be missing quite a bit with. Look at these all-stars. Look at these intellectual giants. These freedom-loving. I can't get enough of these people. Sarcasm, folks. Sarcasm. But anyway, what's going on? We got some Spice token getting used in the wild in real life. Look at this. This is Twitter. 15 Spice got donated to Colin. Colin was just here. He was just giving us the 101. He's getting all this Spice. Amazing. Another cool platform right here. We got DLive showing up in our feed. Definitely check them out. Definitely check out what they're doing when it comes to crypto and how that's getting that worked in. We got our man Niraj, the lobbyist, PR, commander-in-chief himself. He's talking about what? Happy 4th birthday, Ethereum. Very just, friendly tweet from our buddy Vitalik. And then Niraj goes, technically, it's Ethereum Classic's birthday. Ooh, quite the evisceration, Mr. Lobbyist. Mr. Lobbyist and fancy dinner holder. Evisceration for that one. You're just so memey. Can't get enough of you. Anyway. So, we look through Twitter. Chat, what are we up to? We got that DLive hype. We got the Spice is flowing. That is right. The Spice is flowing. Thank you very much. And so that's Twitter. That's what's going on there. Nothing too sexy happening right now. But anyway. So yeah, we explored that, and so we're at the time right now to talk to Vin Armani. Vin, you might know him. He comments on Twitter. He does a lot of shows himself. He's most known right now for his shepherding of Cointex. It's a great application where you can actually send Bitcoin Cash to people's phone numbers. It might be the easiest and quickest way to onboard somebody to Bitcoin Cash and just get them to use it in a minute. So that's a really cool product. Check that out, Cointex. You can also see some of his work at Counter Markets. It's a market-oriented publication. They do a newsletter. They do some other articles. And they give you some tips about, how you be an entrepreneur, how that intersects with libertarianism, how it all comes together. So definitely follow Vin. You can find him at Vin Armani on Twitter. Definitely follow his projects, Cointex, Counter Markets. And what we're going to do with this interview is we're going to explore a theory that he's been coming out with where he says Bitcoin is not money. It's so new. We might have used money as an analogy, as an easy example, but it actually isn't a great fit. And so what we're doing with this conversation is really getting into, okay, well, let's have a grown-up talk about what exactly is Bitcoin? What does it mean for the evolution that we're going for in the next year, 10, 20, 100 years? And how should we actually think about this technology? So we're going to get right into it. Please enjoy our interview with Vin Armani. All right, we're here with Vin Armani. How you doing, Vin?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, it's awesome to have you. Specifically, we have you on today to talk about your thesis, why Bitcoin is not money. You've been going around Twitter talking about this idea, and I think it's a little hard for some people to grasp at first. And so it'd be great for you to just summarize why Bitcoin is not money and how you came to that stance.
Okay, so this might be good as a dialogue, but to start, I think you're right. And I think the most important thing, more than my thesis, is why, because that's been something that's been coming up. Why, and people are like, why does this matter? Why do you care? Why should I care? And I wouldn't be sort of hammering it in if I didn't think that it was very, very important. And so I just wanted to say, before we begin, the reason why whether or not Bitcoin is money actually matters. And so it's really three reasons. And the first reason is, as Confucius says, that the first step in wisdom is to call things by their proper names. And this is very important when you're talking about tools, because how you treat a tool, what you do with that tool, and most importantly, how you evolve and improve that tool, is directly related to what you believe that tool is and what you believe that tool does. And so when it comes to money, we have a pretty good understanding of what money is. Part of my thesis is that I believe we don't have a very good understanding of what Bitcoin is, which is reasonable. And that aspect is not new for me. This is something that I've been saying for a long time, where I've been saying to people that if you want to make the price of Bitcoin go up, you need to ask, what is Bitcoin? And that if you want the price to stay where it is, say that you've got the answer. Because that's how human consciousness works. If you know what something is, you've maxed out on its value. The only way for it to have more utility for you is for you to find new applications and new uses for it. And so that's only done by asking, what is Bitcoin, or what is whatever the tool is that you're using? And so the second reason is because what is money, the actual definition of money, is incredibly important to the state. That's one of the state's purviews. One of the main functions of the state is to regulate money. And as a matter of fact, I would argue that
All right, we're here with Vin Armani. How you doing, Vin?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, it's awesome to have you. Specifically, we have you on today to talk about your thesis, why Bitcoin is not money. You've been going around Twitter talking about this idea, and I think it's a little hard for some people to grasp at first. And so it'd be great for you to just summarize why Bitcoin is not money and how you came to that stance.
Okay, so this might be good as a dialogue, but to start, I I think you're right. And I think the most important thing more than my thesis is why, because that's been something that's been coming up. Why, and people are like, why does this matter? Why do you care? Why should I care? And I wouldn't be sort of hammering it in if I didn't think that it was very, very important. And so I just wanted to say, before we begin, the reason why whether or not Bitcoin is money actually matters. And so it's really three reasons. And the first reason is, as Confucius says, that the first step in wisdom is to call things by their proper names. And this is very important when you're talking about tools, because how you treat a tool, what you do with that tool, and most importantly, how you evolve and improve that tool is directly related to what you believe that tool is and what you believe that tool does. And so when it comes to money, we have a pretty good understanding of what money is. Part of my thesis is that I believe we don't have a very good understanding of what Bitcoin is, which is reasonable. And that aspect is not new for me. This is something that I've been saying for a long time, where I've been saying to people that if you want to make the price of Bitcoin go up, you need to ask, what is Bitcoin? And that if you want the price to stay where it is, say that you've got the answer, because that's how human consciousness works. If you know what something is, you've maxed out on its value. The only way for it to have more utility for you is for you to find new applications and new uses for it. And so that's only done by asking, what is Bitcoin, or what is whatever the tool is that you're using? And so the second reason is because what is money, the actual definition of money, is incredibly important to the state. That's one of the state's purviews. One of the main functions of the state is to regulate money. And as a matter of fact, I would argue that you can't actually have a separation of money and state, because the primary function of the state is money, and the primary function of money is to establish where the state begins and ends. In other words, if you want to know what state you're in, what country you're in, what government you should be rendering unto, like render unto Caesar, it's the story back from the Bible, all you got to do is see what money is being used, what currency is being used. So as a prime example, if we were to go down to Panama right now, basically we don't have to change out our currency if we're Americans. The US dollar is the currency on the ground there. And so when you say, well, what country are you really in? If you're using US dollar, if you look around, you're in the United States of America. If you go and you're using euros, it's pretty, you're in that zone. If you're using Mexican pesos, if everybody around. So separating money and state is, I think, impossible. This is yet another meme that we're going to have to overcome. And third is, it is about memes, and why it's appropriate for us to have this discussion on CoinSpice, which the spice aspect is a direct reference to the memetic warfare world that we're in right now. And so, as we know, as those of us who study memetics and this growing field, as we understand that subtle distinctions can be complete differences in meaning. And money is a meme. And Bitcoin is also a meme. And so it's going to be crucially important for us, if we want to win the meme wars, for us to have memetic discipline. And the only way that we're going to be able to do that, the only way that we're going to be able to move the narrative in the way that we want to, in the way that benefits Bitcoiners ourselves and benefits the overall adoption of Bitcoin, is for us to have control over the memes. And I think that Bitcoin as money is a counterproductive meme to the role of Bitcoin moving forward. And so this is the reason why, in the vein of sort of memetic warfare, that I've been hammering this meme home of Bitcoin is not money. So that's the why. We can get into I know that you're good at this in terms of the dialogue and everything. So if you want to kind of direct this thing, we can get into what my thesis is and the reasons why I think Bitcoin is not money.
Sure. So I just want to append to what you were talking about there quickly. For everyone that's skeptical of the nature and history of money being involved with the state, I think you don't have to look further than the faces that are on our present day dollar bills, you can go back in time to whose faces were on the gold coins. And while some economists like to make big of the fact that gold and precious metals were used as a stable currency for their inert properties, the fact remains that the faces of the emperors were printed on those coins. And in fact, those faces maybe did more to provide value to the coins than anything else. So,
and I would say also, just to add on to that, because spot on, is that I think the subtle distinction in this case is a lot of people say gold was used as money, silver was used as money. I would alter that a little bit to be more accurate and say gold was the raw material out of which money was made. So money was the product, and products are made of raw materials. If gold itself was effective as money, there would have been no reason to expend the effort to turn it into coins. So that to me is very self-evident that it wasn't actually gold being used as money, but that gold had the properties that money needed as the raw building block of money. Just like, if you want spice, you're going to need to put in some peppers into your spicy, on your spicy pizza, but the peppers aren't the pizza. They give it the spice. So that's what gave money its durability. That's what gave money its divisibility, its fungibility. But that wasn't the money itself. It was just that they were using a raw material that had that spice in order to have the money be spicy. So that's the distinction that I would make in that case.
For sure. I think a tangible example too for folks is, imagine thousands of years from now, archaeologists are examining open dimes they find in a tomb, and they're trying to figure out what was it about these little plastic flash drives that were so valuable to people being used as money, not understanding the back solving of the way up to, there was information contained within these plastic bits. So yeah, I think that's something what we're kind of getting at here, where there's vehicles, there's the information contained that is encoded in memetics. And so like you're saying, as we get to this idea of Bitcoin is not money and your journey to that conclusion, how exactly did you arrive at that when we live in a industry where, we're talking about Bitcoin, we're talking about cryptocurrency, we're talking about Bitcoin Cash. So it seems a little, contradictory.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a big hurdle to overcome, which is the reason why I say that we need to get at it now, and why I'm really trying to hammer it home is because the further we go, the more embedded this meme is going to be. If we go back to the white paper, the word money is actually only used 3 times. So you would figure that if what Satoshi was building was a new form of money, that it would be used more than 3 times. Now, even deeper than that, at least one time he's not referring to Bitcoin at all. He's referring to the history of money in general. And then the other 2 times, he's referring to Bitcoin when it's under attack only. And that is that transactions are being reversed. So in that case, Bitcoin is being used as money. He never refers in the white paper to Bitcoin as money when Bitcoin is working correctly. Second off, people like to say Bitcoin is gold. Why did he say mining? If you look at the white paper, he used the word either mine, miner, or mining 1 time. And he explicitly said, the sentence is, the mechanism for adding new Bitcoins into the system is analogous to gold miners mining for gold and adding it into the overall supply. So he's saying already, I'm only using the mining and the gold thing as an analogy here, because I don't know, I need to compare it to something because this is brand new. So he explicitly says gold and the mining is clearly and simply an analogy. Then he literally defines what an electronic coin is. So for people who are like, well, it says coin in the name. He says, we define an electric coin as a chain of digital signatures And then he goes on to explain how ownership is basically transferred by each owner signing at the end of the chain. So Satoshi says, 1, this is not a coin. I'm using this as an analogy. 2, this is not digital gold. I'm using gold as an analogy. 3, this is not money. When it's working right, it's not money. And I think that just those things, for those people who are like, oh, well, Satoshi said, got to go to the white paper. It's like, yeah, just pull up the PDF, do a find, and look for money, mine, miner or mining, and coin. And it's going to become very, very clear to you that we've been operating under what is basically, let's say it's efficient to do it this way. It's easy to explain it to people. But for those of us who have been in the space, who are looking to grow the space, the value peaks out. It's like at a certain point saying that babies come from the stork is not efficient. It's really not efficient for you as an adult with children to believe that Santa Claus brings presents. Maybe that was okay for you when you were a kid because you wake up in the morning, Santa brought the presents, they're there. But I guarantee you, if as a parent you believe that you're going to go to sleep and Santa Claus is going to bring presents for your children, you're going to have some very unhappy children. So this is for us to realize that we've reached that point now where if we want this to be an adult technology, which is becoming treated like an adult, governments are beginning to treat this like it's a real thing. We've got to help them to understand. But the only way that we can do that is to understand it ourselves.
Sure, and I think it's helpful to talk about, the Webster definition of money. You've posted it on Twitter to help elucidate what you're trying to get at. So quickly, money, something generally accepted as a medium of exchange, a measure of value, or a means of payment, such as officially coined or stamped metal currency, money of account, or paper money. So with that definition being our template, how would you then use the verbiage, the nouns, whatever might be there, to then contrast to what you're saying about Bitcoin?
Okay, so when we're exploring something new, and Bitcoin, my argument is that Bitcoin is completely something new. When we encounter a new species, et cetera, and we're trying to classify it, it's much easier to say what something is not than to say what something is. To exclude it from known categories. That's actually the first thing you do when you're doing classification, is to exclude it from known categories. So in terms of the examples there, and what we know as money, it's pretty well excluded from that. It certainly is excluded from like when we talk about money supply, M0 through M4, it's excluded from that. It's not in there. Bitcoin is not counted as being part of the money supply. The argument on the other side is that it is a medium of exchange, a store of value, and a unit of account. I'm not actually convinced that it is a medium of exchange. I'm not actually convinced that it is a store of value. Unit of account, I think that's okay. And the reason why I say this is that Bitcoin is a self-referential ledger. So unlike your bank ledger, which is actually referencing money, you can draw, as much as Mises did, this is what Mises's regression theorem is all about, is he says, take the money that you're looking at, it's a reference to value that existed before, and value that existed before and before. So if I go and I deposit currency into my bank account, the bank's ledger is a reference to my deposit. Now we can do all kinds of stuff at the bank level where we move things around and the banks settle between each other, but they're still settling a reference before that. And the dollars themselves, if I had taken paper money and put them in, they're actually a reference to bonds. Or we could say that further, that they're a reference to taxes that will be paid in the future, to some debt. When they're gold backed, they were actually a reference to gold held in a vault. I could go and I could redeem it. And this is what Mises was doing, looking backwards and backwards and backwards. And so in that case, we are actually exchanging something that's a reference. Bitcoin's a self-referential ledger. We're not actually exchanging anything when I give you Bitcoins. What I'm doing when I give you Bitcoins is, as Satoshi says, I'm adding a signature onto a chain of signatures so that it's assigned to an additional public key that you can then put a signature on. I don't know if that actually qualifies as an exchange. I'm not sure that that's actually an exchange. And in terms of store of value, well, Bitcoin doesn't reference any other value. There's no vault with something that was deposited into Bitcoin. Bitcoin's ledger is referencing itself. Now, we can put some value on that. We can abstract all of these things. So we can take and abstract out the idea of exchange. But what is it that we're really exchanging? Are we exchanging Bitcoins? Or are we exchanging my labor at providing cryptographic proof and adding a signature onto the bottom? This is the question. This we don't know. The same goes for the idea of Aristotelian money. So we go back to the idea of Aristotle, right? And these properties of durable, fungible, divisible, portable. Bitcoin's not divisible. Bitcoin's not divisible. If you take any byte from out of anywhere in the previous, if I take a single byte out of a transaction that happened 3 years ago, my transaction today doesn't exist. Simply doesn't exist. The entire idea of Bitcoin is that it's indivisible. It's an immutable ledger. You can't have a divisible, immutable ledger. That doesn't make any sense. Fungible. Well, they're not fungible. We already know this. We're already seeing it and watching that there is greater value in fresh Bitcoin than there is in, let's say, a tainted Bitcoin, something that's used. Well, it's a public ledger that's traceable, then clearly it's not fungible. So we're already down to 2 gone. Scarcity. People are like, oh, it's got to be scarce. Bitcoin's not scarce. It's not scarce in any way. You can have unlimited numbers of copies of your ledger, and you can also fork it 5 ways to Sunday. How many Bitcoins are there already? There's no limit. So it's not even the scarcity that's giving it value. And this is why I say that this is not an easy question. When you actually take a second to look, it's not easy. But through all those things, from all the things that I've said, to say simply Bitcoin is money, I think is really missing just simply taking 30 seconds and thinking about it.
Yeah, and to examine that a little bit further and why this perhaps is so difficult is that Bitcoin exists within the intellectual, the imaginary realm, similar, and this is where the term property might be not even applicable, but
I believe it's not, by the way. My last book was an exploration of ownership and property, and I thoroughly believe that you cannot own a Bitcoin. But please continue.
Well, I think we're going to see eye to eye here because just for sake of familiar terms, thinking of Bitcoin in the realm of intellectual property versus something that is gold, because even though you could say gold and other precious metals are fungible, gold is rivalrous. So in a similar way that a chair is rivalrous, we can go out and we can steal somebody's chair, and it's stealing because chairs are rivalrous, even though most chairs are fungible. Same thing with gold. Gold is a rivalrous good. You're stealing gold that you are then unable to replace, or the person you stole it from is unable to utilize that in the future. But once we get to intellectual property, now we exist in a place where people can duplicate, copy, and we live in a world of unrivalrous goods. And so no one's actually getting anything stolen from them. And so now, with that frame being set, with Bitcoin existing in the intellectual space, and it being property that's hard to determine, it's non-rivalrous. And so when we then expand out to, well, what is it about cryptography that makes Bitcoin work? It's that it gives it sort of those properties by making it really, really hard for individuals to sort of build a fence around their UTXOs. So in the actual definitions and way that we should describe Bitcoin, it's that, well, actually all this information is available to everyone, and everyone can actually spend everyone else's Bitcoin.
Yes.
although it's only because we make it really, really hard using cryptography, which is not anything like making something rivalrous. It's just making something very hard to disentangle. So once we look at it that way, we actually find, like you were saying, it's not actually property because everyone can actually spend everyone else's Bitcoin as long as they can actually decode it all. And also, it's a non-rivalrous good, so it totally kind of jettisons away from the idea of anything that was, you know, bound by a terrestrial constraint like gold.
Yeah, I mean, it's super, like people would argue. So the argument is going to be, the argument to what you just said, which I 100% agree with, is, well, but I can own my private key. And I think that this is also, yet again, it's kind of a UI thing, and it's sort of like the stork brings babies, because I think a lot of people see a private key, because they see it in the WIF format. They see a private key as being like this string of letters and numbers. But what they don't realize is that there are no, at the base, letters and numbers in cryptography at all. It's only numbers. Your private key is just a very large number in a very large, or perhaps small, but in a very large number set. And so what I'm saying is that every private key is a number, like literally a number, like 7, 132, 5,437,000,000, et cetera, et cetera. It's a number in a range of, I believe, if I don't have this incorrect, it's 2 to the power of 160. So that means that 160 times you double. That ends you up with a number that's basically like 1 with 48 zeros after it, which is more than the total molecules on Earth. So there are more possible private keys than there are total molecules on Earth. So it isn't that you can protect your private key, it's that you don't have to. Because in order for me to spend your Bitcoin, I would have to find your one molecule out of all of the molecules on the Earth. That's how the protection of Bitcoin works. That's what cryptography is doing. But I think that when you really understand that, then you have to say, well, can you own the number 7? Can you own the number 23? If the answer is no, then you can't own your private key, because your private key is nothing but a number. And whether it's 7 or 7 billion or 7 quintillion, that doesn't change the nature of the fact that you can't own a number. And so I think that for us to move forward as Bitcoiners, we need to start understanding what is Bitcoin. And thus the reason for asking the question, and not to be so quick to answer and believe that we have the answer, because even I don't have the answer. I'm having a very difficult time saying what is Bitcoin. It's much easier to say what Bitcoin is not. What I've come up with so far is that it's a shared self-referential ledger. That's as much as I can say about it so far. I think that we've got a lot of exploring and experimenting to do before we actually figure out what Bitcoin is, if we ever do.
Yeah, and as we are hitting the conclusion here, to sort of think about it this way, we have our community. Let's say everyone starts getting a little bit more nuanced about this. The realization occurs. However, you have Stephen Mnuchin out there and his counterparts. Whatever we say, whatever the people within this bubble say back to them, if they just say, well, no, you're actually money. We're declaring you money. We're sending the IRS after you. We're sanctioning you if you do something with Bitcoin, with Iran. We're coming after you. All these sorts of retaliations. So when the state does not listen to you in that regard, even with a very big groundswell of support from those within the community, how does that conflict resolve?
Well, I think one important thing to look at is that politics is a lagging indicator of culture. And so we are living in a time when we have now same-sex marriage. We have marijuana coming out and being normalized and sort of put into the mainstream, which, by the way, excellent because the medicinal properties of marijuana are now available to everybody out there. And in the same way with same-sex marriage, right? That, like, taking these things culture first. It has to be culture first. And there is always backlash to new ideas. We should expect that. But it's not that this is necessarily, if you have the minutians of the world out there who are dead set on it in this moment, this is not necessarily going to change that one person's mind. But we can make him look stupid. We can make it so that the next person that comes along is like, I'm not going to treat it like a buffoon, like I'm a buffoon, which is very much what we're seeing in the case of marijuana. We should really take that as an example. That for years and years and years, and I mean, I was an avid pot smoker for many, many years. Then it got too strong. Now I'm trying to get back. I like CBD still. It's very good medicinally, but for years and years and years, pot smokers, pot growers, the line was, this is not a drug. This is not a drug. This is an herb. This is a medicine. This is a plant. It's only through that mimetic discipline, as I said, that you are able to change the culture over time. And for me, Bitcoin is a multi-generational project. I would like to see this here and vibrant for my own children. And I know that it's going to take that. It's only 10 years old. And there's so much more that we can do inside the space. There's so many things that Bitcoin can do that we don't even know it can do yet. And I want to do everything that I can. And I think as Bitcoiners, and even if you're just holding and wanting to see the price go up, it's important for us to have that mimetic discipline so that we don't pass up the opportunities. And certainly, if we tell the government that it's money, the government will say that it's money, period. There's no reason for them to do any more work. So our job is to have the knowledge, to expand our own consciousness, to move it forward, to have mimetic discipline, and that's how we can be the leading indicator, and then politics will change along with us.
Well, that's a great note to end on. I want to thank Vin for joining us today, and all right, and we are back. That was our interview with Vin Armani. That was some great stuff, some heady stuff, some intellectual stuff, some stuff that I'm still trying to think about myself. But this is a conversation that we should be having. It's a conversation that needs to get out there, not just using sort of simple analogies. I think it was cool that he brought in is it really adult of you to sort of keep believing in Santa Claus or the stork? At some point, certain stories become not too useful, which may have been useful for certain situations. So really fantastic interview there. You can follow Vin at Vin Armani on Twitter. You can check out his projects, Cointex, Counter Markets. See what he's doing there. Really cool projects. Yeah, and so let's see what you guys had to say. Let's see what the chat has to say. Guys, comment away. What did you think of the Vin Armani interview? What we got Ed Kelso over there saying great interview. Very true. Do you have any questions? Is there any questions that are arising from what Vin was talking about, some of the back and forth we got into? Do you think he was wrong? Do you think he's right? What do we got? So I'm gonna dive in a little bit to your comments here. So we got Gray Wervin saying, "Can you own a gold coin? No, not if someone beats you and takes it. The concept of private property allows you to own it. It's human invention as well." Going in further, seeing some really good discussion going on here in the CoinSpice chat. Piling peppers, oh yeah, absolutely, always piling peppers. So So we got boo, boo, boo. So coming through. So we got Bitsco user saying money is memory. So that's something to think about there. Very short and sweet. So all right, we got some interesting comments going on right there. Cool. So yeah, that was Vin's interview. Please check him out. We'll be doing some more interviews as we go along, for sure. But now let's get to the finale here. We have some dank memes. We told you, if you look in the chat and you look on our Twitter, there was a post about posting the meme, and the best one gets on the screen. So if we can think about a drum roll here, let's see what we got going on, folks. What meme is gonna win? Who do we want to win? Chat, let's see. Who do you want to win? Is there a meme that you're dying to see? Let's see. Close call. It's a close call. I'm checking them out right now. And the meme is right behind this screen. Who did it? Who's actually going to win the grand prize? It's a mystery. And it is Shifpo. Shifpo had the dankest meme of the night. BTC Maxis. You cannot buy coffee. The rest of the world. There's something going on here. The meme magic is nice. We have some coercion going on. We have some elitism going on with the orientation and the vertical difference here. We have the classic coffee meme. We all want to buy coffee. Not just coffee, but cappuccinos with cool BCH logos on them. And yeah, the rest of the world. We're all about the rest of the world. Not just like institutional bankers that got us into the financial crisis of 2008. The entire world. So, great meme. Shifpo won. Everybody, next week, do better. Try to outpace Shifpo. He's the ranking champion as of now. Yeah. And so, folks, we're actually doing a special this Thursday, Bitcoin Cash Fork Anniversary, August 1st. Check us out, 8 p.m. on Thursday. We're going to do a little special. We're going to go over what the fork means. Got some cool little segments planned for you, some thought leaders, yes, thought leaders, and just talking about what the fork means from a retrospective, from what the future potential is. And always catch us every Tuesday at a regular time, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Make sure to check out our store. Everybody, if you want to look fly, if you want to look not just dank on the internet, but dank in real life, what are you doing not getting one of these shirts? Look at these shirts, folks. Look at these shirts. They're amazing. Who doesn't want this? And the benefit here, you can actually pay in Bitcoin. So please check out the shirts. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. You love the show. You're here. You're watching. Subscribe. See all our other videos. See Hayden Otto just killing it in Australia. See Kelso doing some fantastic podcasts, some long form interviews with people in the space. You can't get that spicy content anywhere else. Check out all the great stuff. We got a new correspondent coming in, Ross Hinglish. He's our guy that covers Indian crypto markets. He's going to be posting more videos. Definitely check him out. Make sure to subscribe to our Telegram news channel. Don't miss a beat. Follow us on Twitter. Get all that good stuff. Oh, and I just want to say we have a special mystery guest that was coming on. So I just want to say It's a pleasure to announce that we're going to now interview a true business icon, a leader, a champion of cryptocurrency, the co-founder. I'm being told now. So we wanted to have Justin Sun on, but hold on, he's trapped in a well on Warren Buffett's golf course, and they're saying his kidney stones are too heavy to pull him out. Oh, well, all right. So we wanted to have Justin on. I hope we can maybe figure out for another time, but unfortunately, he's stuck in a well and his kidney stones are too heavy to pull him out. All right. Well, this has been CoinSpice Live. I'm your host, Peter Ryan. Follow me at _Peter Ryan. Make sure to follow us on all our channels. And everybody, stay spicy.